Ever since the debut of the Super Smash Bros. Series on Nintendo 64, a certain iconic pink puffball has shown up in every game to prove his worth in the fighting arena. No, not you, Jigglypuff. That's right, Kirby. Created by Masahiro Sakurai, the same man spearheading the development of the Smash series, Kirby's most defining characteristic is his ability to swallow his enemies and copy their abilities. He does this plenty in his own games, but if you want to see the full extent of Kirby's powers of imitation, one need look no further than the Super Smash Bros. Games. In this series, Kirby steals the abilities of many of the most iconic characters in the history of gaming, which he uses against his opponents. With a whopping 88 characters available for copying in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, including the DLC characters, and a few other attacks present in other games, this makes us ask which of Kirby's copy abilities in this series are the most destructive and which ones serve more as minor nuisances. I'm Caleb with One Up Binge, and this is Kirby's Super Smash Bros. Copy abilities, Week 2 Powerful. Before we float into our list, let's establish some ground rules for the rankings. Super Smash Bros. Is a series known for having a large amount of clone characters. These are characters with movesets similar to pre-existing characters in the series. Some of the copy abilities for characters have slight differences from their clones and some don't. Therefore, if Kirby gains the exact same copy ability from more than one character, we will lump them together in our rankings. Secondly, if one copy ability does more or less the same amount of damage as another copy ability, we will give one an edge depending on other aspects such as range or practical use. Thirdly, a few of the copy abilities which Kirby receives from characters are charged attacks that deal a variety of damage depending on how long they have been charged. We will be ranking these attacks based on their full potential after being completely charged. With all of that established, let's ride our warp stars into the list, starting from the weakest and working our way up to the most powerful. At the bottom of the list, we have one of the more recent additions to Kirby's copy abilities, Minecraft Steve, Alex, Zombie, and Enderman's Mine and Create Block. For this ability, Kirby digs up dirt which he uses to create temporary blocks to use as platforms. The reason this ranks at the bottom of our list is because we're ranking these abilities based on the damage they do to the other players. Mining and creating blocks does none, and even as blocks, they disappear after a few seconds. So they are not powerful in any way. Spraying into our next spot is Squirtle's Water Gun. The Pokemon trainer has 3 different Pokemon for Kirby to swallow up, and Squirtle is the least evolved and probably the weakest. Swallowing this turtle gives Kirby the ability to shoot water at his enemies. What does the water do? Pushes them back a little bit while inflicting no damage. We put it above the Minecraft character's copy ability because at least the water pressure moves the other characters, but that's not enough to place it any higher. Up next, we have one of the hardest copy abilities to rank, Villager and Isabelle's Pocket. Both of the Animal Crossing residents in this game grant Kirby the same ability of snatching up a projectile, keeping it in their back pocket, and releasing it whenever they're ready. The reason this is hard to rank on this list is because technically this is a counter. So, however much damage the move does depends on the strength of whatever projectile Kirby picks up. We're putting it near the bottom since the actual move itself doesn't do damage on its own. Therefore, it's not powerful so much as it is convenient. In the same vein, Peach and Daisy's Toads come in next. Much like Villager and Isabelle's Pocket, the Toads harnessed by these two princesses are counter moves. Instead of deflecting projectiles, these mushroom men counter physical attacks dealt by other players. We're putting the Toad slightly higher than the Pocket ability, since melee attacks in general are more powerful than projectiles. But this is another move that's completely useless without something to counter, which is why it doesn't rank higher. Next up, we have Shulk's Monado Arts. This is yet another ability that is hard to rank for 2 reasons. 1, this move has 5 different options for Kirby to choose from. And 2, this isn't an attack, but instead a move that enhances Kirby's other abilities. Depending on which art Kirby chooses, the Monado Arts improves the character's jump, speed, shield, buster, or smash. We're ranking it low since it's not really an attack, and 3 out of the 5 options don't increase Kirby's power anyway. This is a useful move for sure, but we wouldn't go as far as to call it powerful. Finally, getting to an attack that deals actual damage, Fox's Blaster shoots into the next spot. One of the 9 copy abilities that have been consistently available since the first Smash game, Fox's Blaster does very little damage to enemies. It does so little damage, in fact, that opponents don't even flinch when shot by it. But what it lacks in strength, it makes up for in both range and the ability to rapid fire, making this an attack which can quickly rack up damage from a distance. Fox's Blaster is a good move which can be used strategically, even if the raw power of it is very low. Heating up our next spot are Bowser's Fire Breath and Charizard's Flamethrower. Even though these are technically 2 different copy abilities, they essentially function the same and deal similar amounts of damage, so we will lump them together. Much like Fox's Blaster, these are 2 moves which deal damage slowly and incrementally. Since the fire is hard to escape from, there's a good chance that these attacks will be effective and raking up damage. Judging it by the individual amount of damage it deals though, this is another pretty weak attack. Another rapid fire attack, the Inkling Splatter Shot sprays into our next entry. This is another attack that does little damage, but the advantage here is that Kirby can cover his opponents with ink, causing them to take more damage. The ability is somewhat unique in that Kirby can run out of ink, causing him to lose his ability. This makes it one of the few copy abilities Kirby can lose due to limit capacity rather than having it knocked out of him. Another weapon-based copy ability, Joker's Gun, fires in next. Kirby may not be stealing this Phantom Thief's heart, but he is stealing his Glock. While Joker's Gun is slightly more powerful than Fox's Blaster, it doesn't have the same rapid-fire potential that the Space K9's move has. If Kirby fires the gun in the air, he manages to shoot it in multiple directions, which is much more effective than when fired on the ground. Either way though, these bullets don't serve as much more than a mild annoyance for enemies. Sticking with the gun theme, Falco's Blaster shoots into the next spot. While Falco's moveset is a clone of Fox's, Falco generally is more powerful than his leader, and his blaster is no exception. Falco's Blaster doesn't have the same rapid fire rate as Fox's, though it does manage to deal slightly more damage per shot. Falco's Blaster actually does manage to make his opponents flinch, which is another reason it ranks above Fox's. I guess Kirby should be thankful for the more powerful gun, even though Fox can rack up the damage faster with his blaster. Sliding into our next entry is the Ice Climber's Ice Shot. The Ice Climbers weren't exactly the most well-defined characters before entering the Smash Bros. Roster. They only appeared in one game with the limited movesets of jump and hitting things with their hammer. Nevertheless, they found a way to use the ice they find on their expeditions to their advantage. If Kirby inhales either Nana or Popo, not only will he get a snazzy parka to wear, he will gain the ability of shooting ice at his enemies. It may not cause the enemies to freeze like other ice abilities, but it can be a useful attack due to its relatively long range. Hatching into our next spot is Banjo & Kazooie's Pre-Gull Blaster. After being absent for several years, this bear and bird duo made their triumphant return on the Switch as part of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate's roster. When swallowed by Kirby, the pink puffball gets a Kazooie of his own, which he uses to fire eggs at oncoming enemies. Kirby can also take the red bird out of her backpack and use it to rapid-fire eggs at their enemies. The eggs she fires may not rank among Kirby's most powerful copy abilities, but it can be useful for a ranged attack. We still aren't sure how or why Kazooie spits eggs from her mouth. We're thinking this bird needs to see a veterinarian. Bouncing into our next spot is Mario's iconic Fireball ability. After sucking up Nintendo's mascot and stealing his hat, Kirby consumes the power of the Fire Flower, allowing him to shoot fireballs out of his hands. The fireballs don't do a whole heck of a lot of damage in Smash Bros, but they do have a pretty good range and can stop enemies dead in their tracks. This is especially useful when opponents are trying to jump up to a higher ledge from below. In his own series, Kirby famously has a chef ability which he uses to cook up his enemies and turn them into food. When Kirby swallows Mr. Game & Watch, he gets a different kind of chef ability. With this move, Kirby turns into a black two-dimensional figure and cooks sausage on a pan, which causes slight damage to his enemies. We're not sure how this works. Maybe the sausages are so hot that even touching the enemies is enough to scorch them. Either way, if someone ever invites us to barbecue in Flat Zone, we might have to decline the invitation based on this move. Next up, we have Ken's Hadouken. One of Kirby's few copy abilities which originates from another fighting game, Ken's Hadouken is also one of the most iconic moves in the entire Super Smash Bros. Series. Even if you've never played a round of Street Fighter in your life, we're willing to bet you've yelled Hadouken at several points with the characters in this game. Ken's Hadouken in this game isn't quite as powerful as Ryu's, which we'll get to later, but Ken's iconic attack still makes for a very useful ability for Kirby to obtain. One of Kirby's earliest copy abilities in the Smash series, Pikachu's Thunder Jolt, sparks up our next ranking. While Kirby has harnessed the power of electricity in his own series many times, Pikachu's Thunder Jolt works a little bit differently. For this move, Kirby shoots out a spark of lightning which bounces around the stage until coming into contact with another fighter. The Thunder Jolt can even go under the platform it's on when shot, proving that not even gravity can save this attack from being stopped. It may not be one of the most powerful copy abilities in the game, but due to its range and speed, Pikachu's Thunder Jolt ends up being one of the more useful attacks in Kirby's arsenal. Next up, we have Ness's PK Fire. For the most part, Kirby has retained the same copy abilities for each character throughout every game in the series. The one exception to this is Super Smash Bros. For the Nintendo 64, which features different copy abilities for Link, Jigglypuff, and Ness. This move is the classic PK Fire, which sends a flame to burn any enemies in front of Kirby. It should be noted that, much like Bowser's Fire Breath and Charizard's Flamethrower, this move can deal extra damage depending how long the character is stuck in the flame. However, we are only basing this on initial impact, and as such, PK Fire ranks a little on the lower side. When he's not donning his classic red hat and blue overalls, Mario can be seen using medicine as his primary attack via the use of Dr. Mario's Mega Vitamins. While Dr. Mario is rightly referred to as a clone of Mario, the good doctor is notable for being more powerful than the mustached man is while wearing his plumber uniform. Dr. Mario's Mega Vitamins work essentially the same as Mario's Fireball, bouncing around the stage until it reaches an enemy. For whatever reason though, the Mega Vitamins outdo the power of a scorching Fireball, dealing slightly more damage per pill. I guess we should never underestimate the power and danger of medicine. However, whether Mario's fighting as a doctor or a plumber, Luigi's Fireball manages to deal a little more damage than either of the copy abilities performed by his brother. Green flames are generally known to be hotter than the red ones, which is likely why the lanky Mario brother is more powerful in this area. Unlike Mario's attacks, Luigi's fireball shoots in a straight line, which can be more or less useful depending on the circumstance. Much like his jumping ability, Luigi manages to outperform his brother in terms of the flames that emit from his palms. Another fire attack that emits from a character's hands, Ryu's Hadoken, comes in next. While both Ryu and Ken's Hadoken are very iconic, Ryu managed to perform this attack first in the Smash series due to premiering in Smash 4. This attack essentially works the exact same as Ken's Hadoken, except Ryu's attack is slightly more powerful, thus it gets a higher spot on this list. Not much else to really elaborate on here, so what else can we say other than Hadoken? Up next we have Link's Boomerang. Another copy ability which only appears in Super Smash Bros. On the Nintendo 64, Link's Boomerang is one of the few projectiles to return to the player after being thrown. If Kirby avoids the boomerang as it returns to him, then it will keep spinning behind Kirby until it either hits an enemy or flies off screen. This boomerang can actually be used quite strategically so long as the player is paying attention to where everyone is on the stage. Moving on to more weapon-based abilities, Zero Suit Samus's Paralyzer shoots into our next entry. For this copy ability, Kirby not only gets a ponytail of his very own, but also a gun which he can shoot to paralyze opponents. If Kirby charges the gun slightly, not only can it deal more damage, but it can also cause whoever he shot to be stunned even longer. In terms of raw power, it could be argued that Luigi's Fireball and Ryu's Hadoken do deal slightly more damage, but because of the added effect of the Paralyzer, we feel it deserves to be ranked a little higher. The final Star Fox related ability on our list, Wolf's Blaster, fires in next. While Fox and to an extent Falco's blasters are notable for their rapid fire rate rather than its speed, Wolf's Blaster is much slower both in terms of bullet speed and fire rate. The upside to this is that Wolf's Blaster is much stronger and deals a higher amount of damage to whoever it comes in contact with. Whichever ability Kirby decides to use depends on the player's personal preference. But in terms of what blaster is technically the most powerful, that honor easily goes to Wolf. Hatching into our next ranking is Yoshi's Egg Lay. After Kirby eats and digests Yoshi, he is granted the very unique ability of eating and digesting other enemies. Familiar territory for the Puffball, but instead of sucking them in and stealing their moves, Yoshi Kirby catches opponents with its tongue and lays them out as an egg. Not only does this cause a little bit of damage initially, but Kirby or other opponents can wail on the trapped character further as long as it's still stuck in the egg. This move is only moderately powerful on its own, but considering the continuous damage that can be caused, Yoshi's Egg Lay can be quite the useful move. Another electrifying attack, Pichu's Thunder Jolt, is up next. Introduced in Super Smash Bros. Melee, Pichu's Thunder Jolt essentially works the same as Pikachu's, sending a jolt of lightning to bounce around the stage. Any longtime Pokemon fan may be surprised to see Pichu's signature move ranked so highly above Pikachu's, considering Pikachu is Pichu's evolved form and is generally stronger. In the context of the Smash series, Pichu's Thunder Jolt does seemingly deal more damage, some of which adversely damages the player itself. Pichu's Thunder Jolt can be very useful, but considering the move negatively affects the person using it, we're willing to bet that this isn't Kirby's favorite copy ability to use. Sprouting into our next spot is Olimar and Alph's Pikmin Pluck and Throw. While Kirby may not get a chance to command a full army of 100 Pikmin, he does at least get a chance to command a handful of them thanks to the use of this ability. After eating one of the two tiny spacemen, Kirby plucks up to 3 Pikmin at a time, all of which have different abilities. The red Pikmin can burn enemies, the white Pikmin can poison them, the purple Pikmin causes more damage, etc. This attack is somewhat hard to rank due to the variation of Pikmin, so we try to average them out, giving them a respectable position on our list. One of the more confusingly named moves on our list, Pit's Palutena Bow, is up next. To be clear, this is a move for Pit, not Palutena, even though the bow itself is named after the goddess of light. If Kirby swallows the fallen angel, he gains access to this bow, which can shoot very far across the stage. Not only that, but the player can curve the arrow up or down to attack opponents above or below them. It may not be the most powerful bow and arrow in the game, but Pit's Palutena Bow is definitely a useful copy ability for Kirby to harness. Slicing into our next spot is Cloud's Blade Beam. If anyone were to ask what part of Cloud's character remains the most iconic after all these years, most would point to his sword, with his hair being a close second. Kirby gets both by stealing the ability of this Final Fantasy character. Cloud's sword is so powerful that it doesn't even need to directly make contact with an opponent in order to do damage to them. Cloud's Blade Beam sends green waves of energy around the stage, giving this attack a lot more range than a regular sword. From one puffball to another, Meta Knight's Mach Tornado twirls into our next spot. While Kirby and Meta Knight have definitely encountered each other in Kirby's own game series, Kirby has rarely, if ever, been able to steal his rival's abilities outside of the Super Smash Bros. Series. When he does, Kirby gains access to Meta Knight's Mach Tornado move, which essentially turns him into the Tasmanian Devil, spinning around and attacking other enemies. This is very similar to Kirby's Tornado move found in his regular series. Punching into our next spot is Jigglypuff's Pound, the final of the 3 moves to be exclusive to the Nintendo 64 version of Smash Bros. Jigglypuff's Pound is as simple as can be. With this move, Kirby delivers a punch. No flaming falcons, no charged up lunges, just a plain, simple punch. Despite this, the move does a pretty good deal of damage for how simple it is, so Jigglypuff's Pound deserves a somewhat respectable spot on our list. Playing with fire once again, next we have Terry's Power Wave. Similar to Cloud's Blade Beam, Terry's Power Wave is a punch which has more range than a regular punch. For this move, Kirby sets out a fiery beam of energy across the ground of the stage until it reaches another opponent. It does a decent amount of damage, and the speed of the Power Wave makes it hard for his opponents to jump over without the correct timing. Next up, we have Sheik's Needle Storm. After inhaling Princess Zelda in her disguise as Sheik, Kirby transforms into Kirby disguised as Princess Zelda, disguised as Sheik, we think. Either way, doing this allows Kirby to use Sheik's Needle Storm move, which shoots needles at his opponents. This is another move which can be charged up and released for greater damage, making it a very useful move given the right timing. Facing his other longtime opponent, Kirby's next ability on our list is none other than King Dedede's Inhale and Spit Out. The name of this move could not be more self-explanatory. This ability is less of a new move for Kirby and more of an enhancement, causing much greater damage to the enemies that Kirby inhales and spits out. King Dedede is usually portrayed as Kirby's enemy with a few exceptions, but this move proves that the Penguin and Puffball maybe aren't so different after all. Ivysaur's Bullet Seed is next on our countdown. Out of the 3 Pokemon that the Pokemon Trainer releases onto the battlefield, Ivysaur easily has the most powerful copy ability for Kirby. Unlike most copy abilities, Ivysaur's Bullet Seed is an attack less focused on the enemies to the left and right of Kirby and more focused on the enemies directly above him. The bullet seeds shoot up in a stream from Kirby's head, dealing damage to anyone above Kirby or directly around his hitbox. Flying into our next entry is Link's Hero Bow. Inhaling the legendary hero of Hyrule gives Kirby attire very similar outfit to his sword copy ability in the regular Kirby games. However, instead of using the Master Sword to cut down enemies, Kirby gains use of Link's Hero Bow. This attack needs to be charged to reach both its full power and maximum range. It's not the most powerful attack, but it is good for damaging enemies from a sizable distance. Next in our ranking is Palutena's Auto Reticle. Even though Palutena may not be using the Palutena bow, she manages to have an even more useful ranged attack with her Auto Reticle. If Kirby uses this ability, he will stand in place while the Auto Reticle targets opponents and fires projectiles at them. It may not have as much range as the other projectile attacks, but the targeting system of this move makes it incredibly useful for Kirby to steal. Rotating into our next spot is Mega Man's Metal Blade. Out of all the moves Kirby could have copied from the Blue Bomber's arsenal, the Pink Puffball luckily gains access to one of his most iconic and useful weapons. For this attack, Kirby throws out round metal blades which fly across the board and damage any enemy in sight. The metal blade does high damage at a fast pace and can hit multiple enemies at once. It may not be as overpowered in Smash Bros as it was in Mega Man 2, but this still makes for one extremely useful attack. Spinning in next is Zelda's Nehru's Love. Zelda has learned a plethora of different magic spells over the years, many of which make their way into her Super Smash Bros. Moveset. If Kirby steals the ability of the iconic princess, he will be gifted with a move that not only attacks but protects. Nehru's Love encases Kirby in a crystal which can deflect enemy projectiles. At the same time, the larger crystal spits out smaller crystals at the enemies around it, making for a very useful multi-purpose magical power. Blowing up our next entry is Snake's Hand Grenade. Kirby has gained access to a lot of guns from other characters, but inhaling Snake gives him access to a certain other weapon. With this attack, Kirby hurls a small hand grenade across the stage to potentially blow up another enemy. While Zelda's Nehru's Love could potentially be stronger, Snake's hand grenade barely manages to beat it out since the grenade can cause a small amount of extra damage by hitting its target before it explodes. Up next, we have Incineroar's Darkest Lariat. It seems a lot of Kirby's copy abilities seem to involve spinning around, and Incineroar's Darkest Lariat is yet another move that does exactly that. However, instead of conjuring a crystal or a tornado, Kirby's spin here simply involves the small puffball ramming into other enemies, causing a significant amount of damage to his opponents. I guess Kirby managed to copy some of Incineroar's muscle mass as well. Our next copy ability is Kazuya's Devil Blaster. One of the most demonic powers Kirby ever harnesses, swallowing Kazuya not only gives Kirby a pair of wings, but a third eye from which he can shoot a blot of energy. The energy bolt is very fast and powerful, and can even be angled upward or downward similarly to Pit's Palutena bow. The speed and damage this attack does makes for quite the useful move for Kirby to obtain, even if it looks like the devil is possessing him. Picking up wind into our next spot is Mii Sword Fighter's Tornado Strike. We know what you're thinking, another spinning move, right? Well, no, not exactly. With this move, instead of spinning himself around to damage his foes, Kirby slashes a sword which conjures a tornado. This tornado is quite large, allowing many of Kirby's opponents to be swept up in its path. It may not be the most powerful sword ability, but at least Kirby won't make himself dizzy using tornadoes with this attack. Extending into the next entry is Min Min's Punch. Once again, stealing a copy ability originating in another fighting game, swallowing Min Min gives Kirby long extendable arms, which can reach across the stage to punch other players. If that wasn't enough, if the player holds down the attack button while doing this move, the arms sprout out a cannon which fires lasers at any opponents around it. The sheer length of this attack makes it quite useful, and the damage it causes is quite impressive too. Launching into our next spot is Diddy Kong's Peanut Pop Gun. Foregoing the use of bullets or lasers like most of the other guns in Smash Bros, Diddy Kong's Peanut Pop Gun fires out, well, peanuts. may seem pretty ineffective on paper, but what helps this move rank somewhat highly is its ability to be charged up, dealing much more damage than it does initially. With Kirby's pistols out, he's one tough puffball. From one projectile to another, Young Link's fire arrow flies in next. This move works very similarly to Link's hero bow, with Kirby holding down the attack button and releasing it for maximum damage. You would think adult Link's move would pack more of a punch due to having stronger, more developed arms, but young Link manages to outdo his adult counterpart by lighting the arrow on fire. Effective added touch, we must say. Locking on to our next entry is Sonic's homing attack. While Kirby's speed doesn't increase upon sucking up the blue blur, he does at least manage to be able to curl up into a ball as the hedgehog often does. After bouncing into the air, Kirby once again spins into a blue ball which locks onto any nearby enemies. While this attack doesn't have much of a range, it does back a decent amount of power for anyone close enough for it to target. Once again, stealing a bow from the hero of Hyrule, we get to Toon Link's hero bow. It seems the smaller Link is, the more damage his bow and arrows tend to deal for whatever reason. Similarly to regular Link, swallowing his cartoony counterpart gives Kirby access to the hero bow. Since it functions the same as Link and Young Link's attacks, we don't have much to say other than this is marginally more powerful on average than Young Link's fire arrow attack. Biting into our next spot is Wario's Chomp. While Kirby is known for sucking in his enemies, he usually swallows them in one big gulp. When Kirby does this to Wario, he finds out what it's like to chew his enemies instead. Wario's Chomp can deal more damage the longer that Kirby keeps his victims in his mouth, as Kirby will bite down on them many times. He shows them a little bit of mercy by spitting them out, but we personally rather would be swallowed whole than be slowly chewed and spat out. Pretty humiliating and effective attack. Shooting in next is Rob's Robo Beam. Kirby gets a lot more use out of Rob as a copy ability than consumers did when they bought the robot for their NES. With this move, Kirby shoots a laser beam out of his eyes. The laser beam has 3 levels: uncharged, which causes no damage, slightly charged, which causes a small amount of damage, and fully charged, which can cause a significant amount of damage. This is one of the only charge-based copy abilities that requires the player to wait until it's ready rather than holding down a button. Cannonballing into our next entry is King K. Rool's Blunderbuss. King K. Rool is shown to be a big fan of weaponry in the Donkey Kong series, and his iconic blunderbuss from the first Donkey Kong Country game is no exception. For this move, Kirby gains access to a gun which shoots out cannonballs at enemies. The cannonballs do a great deal of damage. And not only that, but Kirby can use the empty blunderbuss to suck in either nearby opponents or the stationary cannonball and shoot them in the air. It's one of the more useful weapons Kirby gains access to in Smash Ultimate. Spawning into the next position is Pac-Man's Bonus Fruit. One of the stranger copy abilities in the game, this move gets Kirby to hold his hand out and conjure a fruit which he subsequently throws at any enemies in his trajectory. Whatever fruit he spawns does a slightly different amount of damage, and sometimes Kirby can even summon a ship from Galaga which can loop around for an extra hit. An inconsistent attack, but can be quite powerful if the right item spawns in Kirby's hand. Returning once again to the realm of bows and arrows, Dark Pit's Silver Bow is up next. Dark Pit may not be the most distinct member of the Smash Bros. Cast, even by the standards of a clone character, but when it comes to power, Pit 2's Silver Bow packs much more of a punch than Pit's. Both moves function the same, with the ability to curve the arrow up or down, but Dark Pit's Silver Bow stands out as a lot more powerful. Next up, we have Duck Hunt's Trick Shot. While Kirby may not gain access to a zapper after swallowing this duck and dog duo, he does get access to a tin can, which to be fair is a lot more useful than it sounds. If Kirby kicks the can, it will explode and damage any nearby enemies in its radius. Kirby can even let an off-screen player shoot the can to give it an even further range. The Duck Hunt Dog is known for its snarky laugh, but when Kirby gains access to this move, guess who's the one laughing now? Washing into our next spot is Greninja's Water Shuriken. Unlike Squirtle's Water Gun, Greninja is a Pokemon who gives Kirby a water attack that deals actual damage. For this move, Kirby fires out a large shuriken made out of water which damages anyone that it crosses paths with. Greninja's Water Shuriken is large, powerful, and quite fast, making for a pretty effective move for Kirby to duplicate. Landing at our next entry is Mii Brawler's Shot Put. For this copy ability, Kirby pulls out a small iron ball which he launches at nearby enemies. The ball is visibly quite heavy, demonstrated by Kirby's inability to throw it very far and the lack of bounce it has upon landing. With that said, this move can be very useful when thrown on a slope, as Kirby can essentially bowl down any enemies that happen to be on the slope underneath it. Give a round of applause to Gravity for helping elevate this copy ability. Simon and Richter's axe is thrown into our next position. In the Castlevania games, the Belmonts have found a plethora of different items hiding in walls and candles, many of which are utilized in their Smash Bros. Moveset. If Kirby inhales either of the Vampire Hunters, he is given their throwing axes which curve up and forward at any incoming opponents. I guess the Belmont family has some competition awaiting them at any axe throwing contest they attend. Unlocking the next spot is Sora's Magic. The most recent copy ability on our list, Swallowing Sora allows Kirby to gain access to his iconic Keyblade. In doing so, Kirby can use the Keyblade to perform 3 different attacks: shooting a fireball, raining down lightning, and sending out a blizzard of ice. Whichever attack you use can be more useful depending on the situation, giving this copy ability a lot of variety. Next up, we have Rosalina and Luma's Luma Shot. Kirby is no stranger to stars, often riding around on them to traverse around his native world of Popstar. If Kirby swallows this space princess, he gets a star companion to help fight enemies. While Luma doesn't follow Kirby around like it does Rosalina, it does show up to lunge at any enemies within Kirby's direct sight. When charged up fully, this Luma Shot can deal quite a bit of damage for such a small star. Sparking up our next spot is Robin's Thunder. Out of the many Fire Emblem characters available to play in the Smash Bros. Series, Robin is one of the few that uses magic instead of a sword to battle his or her foes. If Kirby eats Robin, he gets access to a magic book of his own, which he can use to shoot out a ball of lightning at other fighters. This is another attack which can be charged up for much more damage, which is going to be a common trait going forward as we delve into stronger copy abilities. Rolling into our next ranking is Lucario's Aura Sphere. For this move, Kirby conjures a round ball of energy which he can use to shoot out at other opponents on the board. This is very similar to the attack of another Pokemon character who we'll get to in a little bit. Lucario's Aura Sphere has a decent sized hitbox and damage rate when Kirby prepares the attack fully. Spitting into the next spot is Bowser Jr. and the Koopa Kids Clown Cannon. If you thought shooting a cannonball out of the blunderbuss was impressive, try shooting a cannonball out of your mouth instead. If Kirby swallows up one of the young turtle dragons, he does exactly this, which somehow causes more damage than the blunderbuss does. I guess Kirby's deadliest weapon will always be his mouth. Speaking of which, Piranha Plant's Patooey is next. Another mouth-based attack, this one involves Kirby juggling a spiky ball in the air with his breath. If a player is directly above Kirby, they get pricked by this round ball of destruction. If a character is next to Kirby, then Kirby can choose to spit the ball left or right for even more damage. Whatever the case, Piranha Plant's Patooey makes for one of the more deadly round balls to appear in any copy ability. The highest ranking Mii copy ability on our list, Mii Gunner's Charge Blast, shoots in next. Similarly to Lucario's Aura Sphere, Kirby will conjure a deadly ball which can be charged if he swallows this Mii character. Kirby can even charge up the blast completely and run around the board, waiting to release it on an unsuspecting opponent. Not the most, original attack, but effective nonetheless. Chomping down on our next entry is Corrin's Dragon Fang Shot. Most copy abilities either give Kirby a projectile or a melee-based attack. With Corrin's Dragon Fang Shot, Kirby gets a little bit of both. Swallowing Corrin turns Kirby's hand into a dragon which can fire out a projectile, which can paralyze players. On top of that, if Kirby charges up the attack fully, then the dragon will take a bite out of any fighters directly next to Kirby. A multi-purpose copy ability, and a very powerful one at that. Returning to the spinning-based copy abilities, Jigglypuff's Rollout rolls out into our next ranking. Replacing Jigglypuff's Pound from the original Smash Bros. Game, Jigglypuff's Rollout is much riskier but also has much more power. Charged up fully, Jigglypuff's Rollout sends Kirby hurling across the stage, making for an extremely powerful impact. This could potentially cause death, either for who it hits or Kirby if he misses everyone and flies off into the abyss. Another ball-based attack, Wii Fit Trainer's Sun Salutation bounces in next. While not a fighter at heart, the Wii Fit Trainers definitely have a wide arsenal of exercise equipment which they use to attack opponents in the Smash series. If Kirby swallows one of these mannequin-looking fitness experts, he conjures up a large ball which can be shot across the stage. Again, not exactly the most original move, but it's very effective for Kirby to use. Taking hold of a gun once again, next we have Bayonetta's Bullet Climax. This is another rapid-fire move with Kirby unleashing a chamber of bullets onto an unsuspecting foe. This is yet another move which can be charged up to full effect, making for more powerful bullets. It doesn't take long to charge this move, making it all that much more effective. Kirby has played with a lot of guns on this list, and Bayonetta's Bullet Climax ranks up there among the most powerful. Cooling down in our next spot is Lucas's PK Freeze. While generally seen as a clone character, Lucas does have a unique copy ability for Kirby to use. For this move, Kirby uses magic to fire out an octagon of ice which he can aim at other enemies. Occasionally, Lucas's PK Freeze can cause enemies to, well, freeze, leaving them open to more attacks. Lucas's PK Freeze ends up being one of the more powerful and useful magic attacks for Kirby to steal. Teleporting into our next entry is Mewtwo's Shadow Ball. Mewtwo is known to be one of the most powerful Pokemon canonically in the game and anime series, and luckily for Kirby, he gets a taste of some of Mewtwo's power. With this move, Kirby conjures up a large ball of energy and releases it at full charge. Common staple of copy abilities nowadays, but Mewtwo was merely the second copy ability to do this after Samus. As such, Mewtwo's Shadow Ball rightfully stands out of one of the series' strongest copy abilities. Once again diving into the realm of swords and lightning, Mirtha's Lightning Buster slicing into our next spot. Kirby has a lot of copy abilities that involve blades and electricity, and this entry on our countdown combine the two. For this move, Kirby can slash repeatedly at enemies for a decent amount of damage, or charge up his attack for a large amount. Definitely one of the more powerful swords Kirby has gotten his hands on, and that's actually saying a lot. Switching over to Mirtha's other half, Pyrrha's Flame Nova comes in next. Whereas Mythra uses the power of electricity to enhance her swordplay, Pyrrha uses fire for a slightly more powerful attack. Mythra's Lightning Buster does have more range, but if an enemy is up close and personal with Kirby, Pyrrha's Flame Nova is the one slightly more suited for causing higher damage. Next up, we have Ness's PK Flash. This may be a bit confusing to see so high up, but allow us to explain. For this move, Kirby shoots out a large ball of PK energy which the player can control around the stage. If the ball comes into contact with an opponent, it will cause a slight amount of damage. However, that's not why this copy ability is up so high. If Kirby turns the ball around and hits himself, it will launch the puffball across the screen, causing massive amounts of damage to anyone he comes in contact with. When used in the right scenario, Ness's PK Flash easily ranks among the most powerful copy abilities in this series. Now, we finally get to what many would consider the most iconic copy ability in the entire Smash Bros. Series, Captain Falcon's Falcon Punch. Ever since the very first Smash Bros. Game on Nintendo 64, Captain Falcon and Kirby have been yelling, "Falcon Punch!" as they perform this iconic move. This punch is so powerful that it apparently awakens some sleeping Fire Falcon, which seems to be the key in making this attack as powerful as it is. What else can we really say? It's the Falcon Punch! Flying in next is Ridley's Plasma Breath. While Mario and Luigi undoubtedly have the most iconic fireball-based attacks, the fireballs that Kirby creates upon eating Ridley are a lot more dangerous than the Plumber's Fire. Instead of shooting them out of his hands, Kirby spits Ridley's Plasma Breath out of his mouth, and once again can charge up the move to be much more deadly. Swinging into our next spot is Donkey Kong's Giant Punch. Kirby may not have the muscles of a gorilla, but that doesn't stop him from being able to pack a punch while wearing this hairy suit. The damage this attack does depends on how much the player charges up their swing. Even with no charge, this attack still packs quite a wallop, and fully charged, it's one of the strongest moves in the series. Blasting into our next entry is Samus and Dark Samus's Charge Shot. Much like many attacks, Samus and Dark Samus's Charge Shot can inflict a minor or major amount of damage depending on how long the player charges up the shot. At full potential, this powerful blast deals a very high amount of damage to any opponent unfortunate enough to get hit by it. Both Samus and Donkey Kong's copy abilities deal similar amounts of damage, so we are giving a slight edge to the Charge Shot due to its long-range capabilities. Byleth's Flail Knot comes in next. Okay, this is the last bow and arrow related copy ability, we swear. As such, it obviously stands above the rest as the most powerful, especially when at full charge. Most Fire Emblem characters give Kirby swords to use as weapons, so having Byleth's copy ability be a bow and arrow is not only refreshing, but can help rack up damage at long range, which we really appreciate. Lunging into our next spot is, well, Little Mac's Straight Lunge. This move is similar to Donkey Kong's in a way. It's a powerful punch that can be charged up to inflict even more damage. Only difference being that Little Mac's move takes less time to charge up, has more range thanks to the forward lunge, and does slightly more damage overall. For a game that includes so many weapons, it's interesting to see that a good punch sometimes ends up being more deadly than a gun or sword. Speaking of powerful punches, Ganondorf's Warlock Punch pounds its way into the top 5. Not only is this notable as the most powerful punch that Kirby can copy, but it's also the most powerful copy ability that doesn't require to be charged up. With that said, it does feel like it requires charge sometimes as the move takes a few seconds to prepare before swinging. The conceptually similar Falcon Punch may be more iconic, but Ganondorf's Warlock Punch stands out as much more powerful. From the most powerful punch to the second most powerful fireball, Hero's Caphras heats up the next spot. Technically, this move has 3 different levels. with the first two being Frizz and Frizzell, but for maximum damage, Cafrizz is the move you want. This is a charged move that sends out a giant ball of fire which explodes and leaves the stage burning afterwards. Undoubtedly one of the most powerful copy abilities in the entire series, but not quite strong enough to reach the top 3. The Bronze Medal of Power is going to Ike's Eruption. Unlike slicing through enemies like many of the other sword-based abilities, Ike's Eruption shows Kirby stabbing his sword down into the ground to create a fiery explosion. This move is extremely dangerous. So much so that Kirby can't help but to get himself hurt due to the radius of the explosion. The damage this could do to the other fighters is worth the risk though, as shown by this copy ability's bronze medal on our countdown. The Silver Medal of Power is awarded to Sephiroth's Giga Flare. One of the most recent additions to Kirby's copy abilities, this move is hands down the most powerful fireball attack in the Smash series. Much like Hero's Cafrizz, Sephiroth's Giga Flare is the third and most powerful level of his move, with the first two being Flare and Mega Flare. Sephiroth, similarly to Cloud, may have taken a long time to appear among the Smash Bros. Roster, but Sephiroth's Giga Flare makes it worth the wait for Kirby. Finally, the gold medal for the most powerful Super Smash Bros. Copy ability goes to Roy and Chrome's Flare Blade. This attack could not be simpler conceptually. Kirby, upon eating Roy or Chrom, gains access to their flaming sword, which can be charged up for a deadly explosion. Kirby can even hurt himself with this move, similar to Ike's Eruption. However, the damage he causes both to other players and to himself is even greater than Ike's Eruption. Roy and Chrom's Flare Blade is an easy choice for number 1 on our list. But let us know in the comments section if you agree with our ranking, and tell us what we should cover next. And if you need a 1-up, remember to hit that notification bell and binge our other Kirby videos. Thanks for watching.